let's say that you are born in January. So when you calculate your solar return, you're going to calculate the solar return for the year of 2021. Hold on, girls and boys. You see that Chris is here.
Hi, thank you, Sandra. Nice to meet you.
Really nice to meet you too. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is a very exciting subject. I love solar returns. I work with solar returns a lot. And I like to say that solar returns is a little key that we can use to change a little bit the experience that we are going to have. Let me pin myself because otherwise I keep seeing Chris as the main screen. The last person who speaks gets the highlight. So solar returns are mainly what happens. It creates a new chart for that moment in time when the sun reaches the same degree, minute, and second where the sun was in the time of your birth. You know, because in astrology, we work with 360 degrees. Okay, so that's a geometrical reference. And so once we have that reference, we have everything calculated mathematically. So when you divide a circle, you have degrees, you have minutes, and you have seconds. So it's very precise. And when you know the time of your birth and you know what time the sun reached that certain degree, this is very important, guys, because this is like everything that solar return is about the moment that happens every year when the sun goes back to the same degree, minute, and second of the time of your birth chart. So it's all related to a solar return when the sun returns to that same spot. You will see that I will share my screen with you, and you will see that the main reference is when the sun goes back to that same degree. But then there is another very important reference for us, which is the reference place where you are at that moment when the sun returns to that degree, minute, and second. Exactly the moment of your birth. So the chart changes if you relocate. Let's say that if you are in a place where you live or in a place where you were born, usually we change places. You know, it's very rare when someone was born in a place and then the person lives in that place throughout their lives. Usually it's not like this. You know, I was born in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and I've lived all over the place. And so every time you relocate for your birthday, you get a different chart for that specific year. How cool is that? You know, you can manage where you want to experience for solar return. The position of planets in the houses is much more important than it is in the signs. Of course, you're going to take into consideration the signs too. But the fact is that the planet in the house is what is really going to highlight the whole year. And make no mistake, guys, that works. It's like, it's so powerful that works. Let's say that you have a chart, a specific solar chart for the location where you are for that birthday. And then the whole chart is like not working at all. And I'm going to give you examples. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show how you can opt to go somewhere else to minimize the impact of certain planets when you have a lot hard planets that year, you can choose where those planets are going to fall, taking into consideration that you can relocate. Because if you cannot relocate, then you're going to look at the solar return for the place where you are. Because if you can't take a trip, like my birthday was March 15th. And so I live in Miami, and the chart for Miami wasn't good. So I was looking for a place for my solar return. And then I saw the Grand Canyon was the best place. So I went to the Grand Canyon, and I had it's unfolding. The whole experience is unfolding. So you can choose to go one direction or another. It's not that you are going to escape when you are having a year that on your birthday you have like a T-square or a square or a super powerful conjunction. It's not to say that you can just, like, if you relocate, you're not going to be able to that you are not going to experience the intensity of whatever is showing on that specific day, where the sun is going back to the same second, minute, and degree of the time of your birth. You have there this very strong indication of where you're going to go. I'm not reading so much here, but then I will read later, okay? Whatever you guys are how long do you, what was that? How long do you have to be at the other place for the chart to take effect? You have to be there for the exactly moment when the sun goes back to that degree, minute, and second. This is like the main thing. And then you can see, like, once you ask to calculate, and I'm going to share with you guys how to calculate that on astro.com, because everyone has astro.com. If I go like, oh, solar return on solar fire, you do like this, you go like this. So I'm going to share with you how to look for that information on astro.com, and then you can adjust, on any kind of program that you use. But it's very important for you to understand that once you ask the program to calculate the solar return for a certain year, it's going to give you the day, because it can be the same day of your birthday. Like for me, it could be March 15th, or it could be March 16th, or it could be March 14. It's always on the same day, a day before, or a day after that. For me, this year, it happened on the 15th. Okay, but if you were advising a client and you see that solar return is happening on the a day before, you have to ask them to be there 2 days before. Why is that? Because let's say that the solar return is happening a day before, and it's happening like 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., like during the night. You want them to be there, because if they are elsewhere, they're gonna, the solar chart will take effect on the place where they are. So bottom line is, solar returns are related to where you spend your birthday, the location. Is that clear? Does anybody want say something about that?
Yes, can I talk?
Of course.
Okay, when you go to another place that is better for you, how long do you have to be there for the chart to take effect? 1 day, 1 week?
Just the day where the
Can you
solar
do me a favor? What?
place.
Mm-mm.
Just the day the solar return is
Yeah.
taking place. Stay there the whole day.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Stay there the whole day, okay? But make sure you get there before.
Yeah, understand that.
Okay, so that's like super important. And then again, I want to highlight that it's much more effective that you look at the planets in the houses than in the signs, because in the signs there's nothing you can do about it. They're gonna be there anyway. You got that? They are going to be there anyway. But if you relocate, then you're going to have a different placement for the planets as related to the houses. And that's what it's going to change the experience. This is what it's going to make the whole experience be adjusted to something that that it's interesting to you. Now, I'm going to be a bit subjective in the beginning, and then I will show the charts. Let's say that you have a client that comes to you and he says, I cannot relocate. I cannot relocate. So in the solar return chart, which is going to be active for the whole year, that client has Uranus in the 10th house, just as an example. So you know that that person is going to shake. Things are going to shake, are going to change for them in the 10th house. Any 10th house matters, promotions that they want to have. They might just completely want to change careers, or the career they were pursuing can undergo a lot of instability or change, or they can become like all of a sudden, depending on the aspects that are affecting that Uranus in the 10th house, they might just like, get a lot of fame all of a sudden. But you have to look at the whole chart. But you know that 10th house, it's going to be something very, very activated. It's going to be very activated. Okay. Now, let's say that that person doesn't want to have to go through all of that. He doesn't want to, too much change on their career level. And they are willing to relocate. So what are you going to do? You're going to find places. You're going to keep trying. It's like trying. You try one place, you relocate them to other places until you get that Uranus out of their 10th house. So that house is not going to be affected on that specific year. But let's say the person misses their plane, if they intend to relocate, but they don't, it's because something in the chart is going to show that they tried to relocate and they didn't. Maybe they have Uranus in the 3rd house, which could be like, I missed my plane, or Mercury can be retrograde that year, But if the person intends to relocate and they don't, that intent of relocation and the obstruction is going to show in the solar return chart as well. Is that powerful? It's really that powerful. Let's say another good example in the 10th house, because the 10th house is the house of destiny. The whole chart is about destiny, but the 10th house has like a shift, it can really throw you to one place to another, because it's very much related to where you want to go. So it's very much related to going somewhere. And then you have someone with Saturn in the 10th house. So if this person has been working diligently, like very concentrated into making something big in their lives, they have been working hard. You don't want to change that Saturn in the 10th house. Leave it there, because they are going to gain a lot of responsibility. But let's say it's someone who has just started in a job. He's insecure, he has a boss who is giving them a hard time. Take that Saturn out of the 10th house, because otherwise this is going to be a miserable year for them. Do you understand that? So you really need to understand where your client stands and where you stand. Like if you have had a year where you had a lot of like, you're super tired, you're burning yourself out with work, you don't want to have a year with Saturn in the 10th house, because that's going to be more responsibility. Is that becoming clear to you guys? Go like this so that I can see. Okay, Okay, so let's say that someone is like is being bullied by people, and they're just like making them miserable. You want to help this client have a Scorpio rising, because they're gonna go like, oh, you're gonna get it this time. It changes games. When you and this is very important. The sign that is in the ascendant, the sign that is in the midheaven are very, very important. So if you have someone who is like doing deep work, they're like really doing deep work on themselves, let them have a Scorpio ascendant. But if they are like super sensitive, like, I don't touch me, you don't want them to have a Scorpio ascendant, because they might not even be able to deal with that. And Scorpio is a sign of crisis. So instead of having them like really become potent in their willpower and all of that, they might just undergo crisis. Okay, but let's say they need to change their game. So you're gonna look for a Scorpio rising, you're gonna look for Uranus in the ascendant, you are going to look to help them have that, to help them. And sometimes you have to say, well, I found a spot here in Slovakia. Will you be able to travel to Slovakia? Sometimes people say, yes, actually, I live in Croatia. It's just across the border, or maybe they live in Paris. It's just like, a 2 hours flight, you don't know. Like, from my perspective, I have to see where that person is and ask them, are you willing to fly from LA to Slovakia? They might say no. So, okay, so we'll try something else. You have to do a bit of, you have to be patient when you're working with solar returns, especially when you are trying to give them a previous advice where to go for the solar return. But let's say the person is coming with a solar return already established. You're reading their solar return. They did not choose. They just happened to be in that place. So you're going to work with whatever is there. Whatever is there. So I'm giving you two scenarios. One scenario when the person comes before their birth and they want to, guys, can you please close the mic? Just while I'm talking, then I will let you open the mics to say something. And so, do you see the difference? One perspective is when you are doing like you are unfolding your interpretation in a chart with your clients, and you want the person did not reached out for the astrologer to do that previous research of where to go for the solar return. So you're going to work with the solar return for the birthday, for their time of the birthday, exactly where they were. They didn't choose. Is that clear for you guys? Okay, so this is like it's a very practical experience, because if you go back to your charts and do a little research, if like I write, I have agendas, like calendars, because that's where not only I use the Google Calendar, but I also have a paper calendar, because I'm old-fashioned, and so I like to have both. And so I always write where I am, and I save all my previous calendars. I save them, and so I know where I was throughout the years. And so I go like, oh my God, that year something happened, and then I go there, it's there. Let me share one chart here with you. Hold on a second. Please bear with me. Let me pause.
Go to the States, to make a big trip. But a few hours, I live in Romania, so Madrid is 4 hours flight. one day going, next day going back is fine for me.
Okay.
But so this is what I could choose, really. I didn't check the other thing, but I can say I would really like to evolve, to expand in my I cannot say in my work, really, not how I work, in what I'm doing.
Perfect example of what we are saying. You found a place where Jupiter is conjunct your midheaven. Go for it. Now, Monica, what you need to do is you have to look at the rest of the chart, because okay, let's say that you have adjusted Jupiter, but make sure that you don't have planets in the 8th house. You don't want to have Uranus in the 8th house. You don't want to have Pluto in the 8th house, because that might spoil your ability to run smooth in that year. You know what I mean? It's not only about looking at Jupiter, because you can look for Jupiter in the 1st house, Jupiter in the 2nd house, Jupiter in the 6th house. It will have a similar effect. Okay, of expansion.
So, but it, you would say if Jupiter is on the midheaven in the 9th, it is as good as no, it is not the same. I know it's not the same.
No,
I think.
What's your question? Ask, share with us.
No, I thought. Okay, I didn't yet check the other thing, and I will. I am too curious, of course, to not do it.
You have at least one very important information. Jupiter can really, push you forward in that direction. Yeah, but just look at other aspects, because it's so subtle. You have to look at the whole thing. You have been listening to, when you listen to my webinars, I'm always saying astrology works in complexity.
Yes.
You have to look at every angle and see that they might overlap. If you have a lot of planets in the 8th house, that's going to take a lot of your energy. You better be ready to deal with 8th house of stuff. Because it's transformation, sometimes it's crisis, sometimes sometimes it's not affecting you directly, but it's affecting people that are in your immediate environment, a husband, kids, you're an employee, you might I have one of my clients, long-term clients, and she became my steady client 4 years ago, but she had been doing solar charts with other astrologers before, so she always says, well, sometimes she doubts solar returns. I have her chart here, so I'm going to share with you guys. And she said, well, I don't really know if solar return really goes all the way to do the job you guys say that it does, because there was a time when I had 4 planets in the 6th house and I didn't get sick, but it was my husband who got sick. He had a cancer and I had to spend a lot of time with him in the hospital, but it had nothing to do with me. And I said, how can you say that it had nothing to do with you? I mean, it's your husband, it's your 6th house. I mean, you have to deal with health issues. Maybe it's not you, but it's someone who is like sleeping with you. It's on your immediate environment, the proximity. So sometimes when you have a bunch of planets in the 8th house, it might not be you. It might not be you who is suffering the whole transformation. But if you are a therapist, or if you're not, even if you're not a therapist, but you're gonna have to deal with someone in crisis, period. If it's not your own, you're going to have to deal with someone's intensity and crisis when you have a bunch of planets in the 8th house. You want to say something, Monica?
Yes, I checked once again. I would have Astrea in the 8th house, which I would like very much, because she's dealing with karma breaking if necessary. She's really, how to say, birthing the new in your life, so that you say it's enough is enough. I deal with this karmic situation right now. And in work, I work a lot with this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that is,
Yeah, it sounds like if you're willing to embrace the intensity of any configuration, go for it.
yeah,
You
it's a
know?
beautiful, yeah.
And the
Sorry.
most beautiful thing, Monica, about astrology is that, you know, taking into consideration complexity in the development of consciousness, you know, the evolution of consciousness, you say like, okay, so in my case, I needed focus. So I decided to go to the Grand Canyon because Saturn and Pluto are in my third house for this year. Started just, and then I needed focus, and it's happening already, you know. And the third house is a house where you don't want to have Saturn and Pluto there for a client that it's a weak person, because Saturn and Pluto are going to smash their thinking process if they're not able to channel that energy. Do you guys get where I'm going? Do you see where I'm going? Is anyone wanting to ask something?
Oops. Yes, does the aspect as an influence on the planet? If let's say if I have Jupiter in the 10th house, but it's in negative aspect with another planet, so does it has an influence?
Oh yeah, aspects do influence. They do, yeah. But you know what? Like I said, you know, I keep saying that. Look at the whole thing, because you cannot change what the year in your solar return. You will not be able to change the position of the moon. You're not going to be able to how can I say, cancel. There's no cancel culture for like the position of planets in signs, but you are going to be able, if you're willing to relocate, to have different types of experiences. If you change houses, you know, and then again, like I said, if you want to have Jupiter in the 10th house, it's fine. And then let's say it has a square, it's gonna have a square. Friend, is your name Friends?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. It's going, that square, it's going to be present in your solar return no matter what. You can't change that. But if you are willing to have that square to Jupiter on your 10th house, you're just going to have to work harder or work with more consciousness, because Jupiter has a lot to do about knowledge. You know, I need to master something. Jupiter helps you master something. It really does. So if you're willing to do that, let's say that Jupiter is in a square to what? To what planet?
Oh, it's just a theoretical question, because I had my chart over here, and I see all these aspects, and I was wondering, where do you start? Like I have like the Uranus in opposition to Mercury from the 3rd to the 9th. So I was wondering, does it count for something? Or
Yeah, well, yeah, you are going to have to put an effort into learning something, getting a new skill, and being able to step up your game as related to learning and teaching, and all of that is going to be highlighted if it comes from the 3rd house to the 9th house. And depending on which planets are in the 3rd house, because the quality of the everyday thinking process comes from the 3rd house, the everyday thinking process, because throughout the development, the house development of consciousness, the 3rd house deals with your everyday mind. The 9th house deals with your higher mind. Like I said, you know, for this year, I have Saturn and Pluto there. but you don't want to have Saturn and Pluto there for someone who has a weak constitution for that year, because Saturn and Pluto really ask you to go deep. The third house can produce a lot of brain and emotional turmoil, because your mind is like going, how? It's going Pluto, it's going Saturn. If you're not mature enough to just get the depth of feelings and thoughts that Saturn and Pluto want in the third house, you're going to be devastated. So if you have a client who is a weak person, take that Saturn and Pluto out of their third house. Take it out of their fourth house as well. You know, because they're gonna, and I'm saying that because Saturn and Pluto are kind of like they are very close to each other, and they can be in the same house, on the same house. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
You know, because of the proximity, and you have like houses that, depending where you are relocating, sometimes you have houses that are 30 degrees wide. So you're gonna have at least Pluto, Saturn, maybe Jupiter there,
Yes.
depending.
Yeah.
I want to show you, let me just look for the pause here, the recording. Let me see, recording. Okay, so my options for this year was the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is right here. Miami. Do you guys see two charts now? 3? Is that too confusing?
No, we see 3 charts. That's fine.
You see 3 charts. Okay. Solar return for the same year. I don't think I can fit them here, but let's look at the possibilities. I chose the Grand Canyon, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because last year I had Scorpio rising, and it gave me a lot of power. It was like a year where I lost my man, and the Scorpio just made me really connect to whatever the deep experiences that I had related to that loss. And so on the sequence, I also helped a lot of people cope with their loss too, because it was COVID. A lot of people were dying and all of that. So, you know, the whole thing about grieving and all of that was very strong. So I had to have that strong Scorpio in the attitude. And so if I stayed in Miami, this is Miami, I would go for a year. That's 2021, March 15th. Okay, March 15th. For this year, I had the solar return happening on March 15th. Okay, but last year, because it was like a year that we had another day in February. I don't know how you call that. How do you call that in English when you have an extra day in February? Can anyone say?
The leap year?
A leap year. That's it. Thank you. So I said, Jupiter is in the Sagittarius is in the ascendant. Fine, you know, that might be a good idea. But I didn't like the fact that I was gonna have the South Node in conjunction to my ascendant. I said, nah, this is not gonna be fun. I don't like the South Node conjunct my ascendant. So that's Miami. This chart, this solar return, is the chart if I decided to stay here. Okay, and then I said, why do I need Saturn, which rules the second house in this chart if I stayed in Miami? In the second house, I want to make money. I don't want to have Saturn in my second house. And then, you know, looking at possibilities, what I'm exercising here with you guys is like, how do you make a decision to know where you're going to go for your solar return? And then I thought, okay, so yeah, I like Jupiter and Mercury in the third house, but this is not going to give me the focus that I want. I need to produce content. And then, you know, I kept that in mind. And then again, I said, then I have, you know, in this chart in the fourth house, a whole full full fourth house. And I said, nah, I don't want to be stuck at home. I want to do things. And then another thing that I didn't want was Mars in the sixth house, you know, in Gemini, because I thought it would just like, I would go into distractions on my everyday work routine. You see, sixth house is work routine. When you have Mars in Gemini in the sixth house, you're going to be distracted. And then Mercury and Jupiter in the third house, I'm going to be distracted. And I didn't want to have to go through that. And then Uranus was in the fifth house. I didn't want my daughter to go through Uranus, you know, because this was going to show up in my daughter, you know, Lilith in the fifth house and Uranus in the fifth house. I said, nah, I don't want her to have to go through this, this kind of instability. So what did I do? I said, I'm not going to stay in Miami. And then I said, I had a friend who said, well, Sandra, come to, I'm showing you first what I did not choose, okay? Come to Lake Tahoe. She lives in Lake Tahoe, and she said, California. So she said, come to Lake Tahoe. And I said, okay, so Lake Tahoe, I do have Scorpio on the rising. That's a good thing. But then again, remember that I told you guys that I had Uranus in 2016 in my seventh house. And I met Michael, who was just like a most interesting, you know, intense relationship, but he wasn't a man, he was a beast. He was so intense, so genius, so sensual and everything that I said, nah, I can't take it. I can't take another one like this. And then I looked and I said, Mars in the eighth house, nah, I don't want that. And then I said, the moon is in Aries. No matter where I go, I would have Mercury, moon in Aries this year. In the sixth house, no, I might just want to, you know, I'm going to be erratic. This is not going to give me the stability for the everyday work that I need. On top of that, I had Saturn on my, you know, conjunct my fourth house. And I said, no, I don't want that. I don't want Saturn, you know, conjunct my fourth house. And then just Pluto here, you know. I said, nah, this is going to be too intense. And at the same time, it's not going to give me the stability for production that Saturn would give me. Are you guys following me? Hopefully. So you know what? Lake Tahoe was dismissed. And so what did I choose here? So I chose the Grand Canyon, okay? But the thing is, for the Grand Canyon, my chart relocated west to the point where this happened at 10 p.m. You see this? On March 14th, no longer on March 15th, like the other places. Okay, so this is very important. And so what is it that I chose here for my year? I have the Scorpio rising as I wanted. I have Pluto and Saturn in my third house, which is giving me focus to produce content as I need. It's giving me much more perspective. I'm becoming very powerful in my words. I'm being very logical and at the same time intense. Logical Saturn in Aquarius and intense Pluto. Okay, and then Jupiter and Mercury in the fourth house is giving me a light, you know, feeling about where I am, how my house is. I changed as soon as I got back from the Grand Canyon. I changed things around the house, you know, to invite in a new feng shui. And then I have all these planets protecting my daughter who lives in Bali, Indonesia, you know, Venus and Sun in the fifth house. I was just like, okay, you know, I'm not going to have to deal with Uranus and Lilith in the fifth house as related to my daughter, which gives me, you know, the protection for my daughter and family matters, you know. And then Uranus is in the 6th house in Taurus. So yeah, you know, I'm willing to put up with doing some rearrangements in the way I work, put more hours, be more genius, put my genius into my work. So this is happening. I do have Lilith in the 7th house and Mars in the 7th house. So, you know, relationships are going to come back. And it did, you know, like I'm a widow now. I have the head of the dragon, the North Node in my 8th house. So I'm still dealing with it. And I'm very comfortable dealing with my grieving at this point, you know, not only because I don't want to make this too much about myself, but I want to expose a decision about solar return with my own chart, because then I can really teach you guys how to be comfortable when you make a decision. I am still doing my grieving process, and I do have men that are coming after me on the 5th house, like really like taking, I don't think it would be like taking advantage, but like seeing the opportunity that now I'm single, you know, and then people from the past, which is like Lilith in Taurus, you know, very people that have been in my life for quite a while, and they're coming back trying to reconnect. But the way I see them is like Mars in Gemini. They're not, it's not exactly what I want. I want something deeper, Lilith like, you know. I want someone who is in there grabbing their witchcraft or their shaman like, you know, like someone who's like really powerful. I have high standards. My benchmark is way too high. And that's what Lilith does for people who have developed their maturity, because Lilith can only play havoc with those who are not holding their horses. This is very important. Pay attention to where Lilith is on the birth chart, on the solar return charts. Okay, so I'm done about myself, and I do want to share another. I have more charts to show, but questions?
Hi, I got here a little late, so did you show how to create a progress chart with a location? Did you show that in the beginning?
Who is this? Let me see.
Oh, hi. My name is Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia. Well, this is a solar return webinar. It's not about progressions yet. You know, we can definitely schedule another call for the for progressions, but this is about solar returns. And I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
I'm new to the group, so I wasn't understanding what it was.
Okay, you're welcome anyway. Okay, to make questions. Let me show you how I do this on hold on astro.com. This is an advanced technique, guys, you know, so it's not to say that it's like the easiest thing for you guys to do, because to interpret, especially because if you don't know how to interpret a birth chart, it's going to be a challenge for you to get into this, you know, sorting out where to go, or how to read a solar return chart. But is this making sense for you guys? Can you give me some feedback?
Yes, it does make sense.
Yes.
Isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I don't understand how you're getting the places. Like, how did you come up with Grand Canyon? How did you come up with,
Yeah, that was my question, really.
Where, you know, there's so many places around the world. How are these places coming to you?
You just try.
You just punch in any location?
Yes. Well, not any. There must be a place of interest. You know, you're gonna go to a place where you have, you know, a calling. At the end of the day, there is a calling, you know, and then you say, like, if someone is calling you to go to Lake Tahoe, let's say, or to go to Austria, and it looks horrible, I mean, you know, you just deny, I'm not going. you have that ability to do that in advance. If you see that the solar return in a certain spot is not going to look good, don't go there. You know, let's say that you're not even thinking about solar returns, and then you just relocate for that specific moment for your birthday, just because, you know, your birthday, you want to take some time off and you decide to go to Croatia. And Croatia has a horrible configuration for you. And if you are not doing solar returns, if you're not doing solar returns, forget about it. You're gonna have to deal with whatever is in your plate in that chart. But let's say that all of a sudden things are happening and you go like, whoa, my God. And it's not, it's showing on your transits. It's showing on your transits, but you want to go deeper and see in which areas that thing is happening for you. And then you cast your solar return chart and it's all there. It's all there.
Okay. So we can look at our solar return chart. We can go back in time to our solar return of this year, back to our birthday, and kind of look to see.
Yes.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay. And we put in the location where we're at, where we live.
If you don't have the location, forget about it. This technique is not for you. You know, you have to have the location. This is like it's reference sensitive. You know,
Yeah.
it's location reference sensitive. You know, just bear with my English, guy. I do my best. But
You're doing good. Okay, I think I get it.
You know,
Thank you.
it's just like it's location sensitive. If you change locations for your birthday, it's gonna change the chart. But how do you calculate that? Let me show you how you do that. Sharing screen again. Okay. Now let's say my astro. I'm going to Sandra. Okay, that's my chart. And then I go here. Is everyone, wait, am I recording this? Yeah, it's being recorded. Yes. So you can just draw your chart with the ascendant, or you want to choose for solar return, you want to choose extended chart selection. I click here. And then you see this is me. Forget about the partner here. It's just there. It's not going to be used. And then I scroll down until I find solar returns. And then I choose solar return chart. Okay. And now let's say that my birthday, this is very important. Follow me very close on this one. If I am looking at an event that happened before my birthday, before March 15th, I'm going to have to look at what happened in 2020. Here, I just changed 2020. That's effective. Forget about these dates here. You know, when you select solar return chart, all you need to do is put the year. But let's say that I want to look at what was happening to me into 2020. And then I go here, 2020, solar return, and then I click here to show the chart. Is everyone in the same page?
You didn't need to put your birth date?
It's already there. That's the basic of it. You see? Horoscope for Sandra. Okay? My birth chart is going to show this astro.com. It is saving. Once you choose the advanced selection, extended selection, the first person who appears here is your reference person. Aline, it's a client of mine. She's not going to be taken into consideration because I'm not calculating the partner. I'm calculating a solar return chart for me, for the first person. Do you get that? Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. The thing is, I was in New York last year. So I click here, and this is the chart. Sandra, name, March 15th, 1961. So I just completed 60 years old. Solar return for 2020, 2021. Do you guys see that? I was in New York City last year. Remember I said it was a leap year? And so my birthday, actually the solar return happened on March 14th. Okay. Do you guys remember I said my partner died? You remember that? Yeah. So I had, for the solar return, I had Venus and Uranus in the 8th house. Okay. So this is very important. And then came COVID right at the moment when my birthday, you know, it was like Neptune and the Sun in the 6th house, you know, they came out with a whole pandemic lockdown in March. So, you know, the Sun and Neptune in the 6th house. Okay, so what I wanted to show you guys is like what happened in 2021. It's effective on March 15th of 2020 until March 15th, until March 14th of 2021. So this chart was still effective until March 14th. I want to make sure that you guys are understanding what's going on here. So if I want to calculate what's happening now for this year, because it's always from the birthday, whatever day it is, to the next birthday. If you were born January 6th, so it's going to be from January 6th, whatever year you're taking into consideration, to January 6th next year, highlighting that sometimes the solar return is counting, is a technique that will ask what's happening in the sky in a certain location for the exact moment when the sun returns to the minute, to the degree, minute, and second of your birth. This is super important. And I don't think it's too hard, but it takes a little bit more of thinking. So this is the chart that I have right now in New York, but I didn't spend my birthday in New York, right? Remember that? That 2021, I was not in New York. So I scroll down, I come all the way here and I say, click to choose a different reference place. Are you guys following me? Please open your mics and say yes.
Yes, yes, we do.
Yes, 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 we do.
Okay, so I go here, click to choose a different reference place. And then other town. This is happening if someone knows how to get this out. So I go USA, okay, and then Grand Canyon, Arizona. And then I go continue. And here's the chart. As I told you guys, the Scorpio rising, Pluto, Saturn, Uranus in the 6th, all the planets in the 5th, Jupiter and Mercury in the 4th. This is exactly the same chart as I showed you guys that I chose. And this year, the return to look at this here. My sun, let me make this big. I was born with the sun at 24 degrees of Pisces, 50 minutes and 29 seconds. Okay, so the solar return is going to ask the sky, what kind of chart will form when the sun goes back to 24 degrees Pisces, 50 minutes and 24 and 29 seconds. Now, let's say that I want to calculate this for another place. I just click here, choose a different place, and I just go other town or other country, other town. Let's say that I want to see my chart, not in the US, but Great Britain, London. Wait. Are you guys following me? I can't see you.
Yeah, this is good.
Okay, so here I have, if I went to London, my birthday would be on the 15th, because this is correcting to the time when the sun and the place, the reference place, when the sun goes back to 24 degrees Pisces, 50 minutes and 29 seconds. Okay, so if I had my birthday, if I had passed my birthday in London, this is a completely different chart. Look at this. You know, I had Mars on the 7th, right? In at the Grand Canyon, and now it moved all the way to the 3rd house. Remember that I had Pluto and Saturn in the 3rd house? Now it moved all the way to the 12th house. Do you guys see how we can change the experience? You know, right?
Yeah.
It's like this is how we can this is how we can change completely the experience. I mean, I don't want to have Pluto and Saturn in my 12th house. I had a friend, you know, that lives in London. I could have gone to London, but I don't want to go to London because I had Pluto and Saturn in the 12th house. You don't want to have, if you can choose, you don't want to go through Saturn and Pluto in your 12th house. Be aware of that. Now I want to I have a friend whose nephew committed tried to commit suicide in a very tragic way. And it happened that she asked me to do the chart for this boy, and I did. And for the year that he tried to commit suicide, actually I should show you his natal chart, and then I should show you his solar return chart. Why? Because like I said, you know, if you are advising a client, or you know, a friend of yours, or maybe your son, your daughter, your husband, you know, that you see that they're already going through a hard transit, like Pluto is transiting their 8th house, which was exactly what happened to this boy. And then, you know, if you can look ahead and see what the solar return is there showing, you have to be very careful, because not everyone is going to be able to go through a tough solar return and come out of it, or go through it, or surf the waves of the intensity with a light heart, with consciousness, because a lot of people are not working on a high conscious level. They are like very materialistic. They wake up in the morning, maybe they brush their teeth, maybe they don't, you know, maybe they exercise, maybe they don't, or maybe they meditate and do yoga and take walks and take good care of themselves, maybe they don't. But mostly you find people who are very narrow-minded, because they go with the herd. They just follow whatever is expected of them. So they have no level of consciousness. They're not studying astrology. They're victims of their own environment and their own inner turbulence. Okay, so I'm going to show you a chart of someone who is a victim of their own turbulence. Here in the community, whoever volunteers, you know, they know that they are going to be exposed. Monica had, you know, a chart open once, right? So you allow us to approach the chart with a scientific mind, trying to not to expose anyone, but just to study how those patterns are affecting us. You know, as a psychologist, I take that into heart. You know, like I don't like to expose anyone, and I have Mercury in the 8th house, so people tell me deep secrets. You know, and I try to preserve them. So, yeah, I invite you to be comfortable with that, because you will not know his last name and you will never meet him. Hold on a second. Okay, so your question again was, now that we are recording?
I thought I heard you say, well, you don't want Saturn and Pluto in your 12th house, but that you would want, I thought I heard you say Scorpio as an ascendant?
Mm-hmm. Well, Cynthia, from the specific reason that Scorpio rising has a very intense and depth in quality to it, okay? And if you had like a year before, you had a Scorpio rising, and you felt like that was an intense year, but nonetheless, you did a lot of leveraging in your consciousness level, then it's a good one. But you know, since the beginning, I said that Scorpio rising is good if you are ready to take your power, because Scorpio has a lot to do with personal power. You guys know that. That's very basic about Scorpios. Scorpios really like to take control of their scene, and you know, they like to be on top of their games. They're business oriented, they go deep into subjects, you know. But the 12th house, in opposition to having just the Scorpio rising, is like it's depth, you know. You kind of like, you don't want to show up too much. So it's a different thing having Scorpio in on the ascendant than having Pluto in the 12th house. You know, it's like, I always say that astrology is all about complexity. We need to take into consideration all the elements that are coming to your mind. It's not a simple technique. This is not a simple technology. It's not. It's very challenging. If you are embracing astrology, be very patient with yourself, because it takes a long time for you to put the pieces together. And at the end of the day, this only works in a dynamic. You know, some transits are overlapping each other. Then you have the solar returns, then you have progressions, and you have a bunch of information that you have to be wise enough to ground everything and make sense of it. Like I said, you know, be very responsible with yourself, and very patient with your own process. Your development takes time, takes a lot of time. I'm still learning. I just like I just learned how to use this the lunar return, which allows you to see month by month what happens during the year. It's just like so fascinating. That's a thing for another. This is like, honestly, we are being very bold here, trying to do a 2-hour webinar and showing you guys this technique. I'm just like planting a seed for you guys to develop the kind of like interest in this amazing technique that is the solar return. But I am not intending by any means to say that you guys are going to come out of this, you know, 2 hours talk with a whole technique. No, I would have to go through to open a course. I'm going to talk to Kai Pacha about that. Maybe somebody else wants to do it with me, but this is like, it fascinates me. And I do love to talk about it. I think it's like, it helps us a lot. Surf, you know, big waves. Like you can come to terms with the universe and say, hey, you know, let me work with you, work with me. You know, I have the consciousness of spotting where I can go on top of the earth to get the best cosmic influence for that year.
Yeah, I did sign up. I wanted to get a reading from Kaipacha on my best location where to live, because I've never heard of that with astrology, but I'm on the waiting list. So this is great. I'm really excited about this. Out of curiosity, I wanted to see what would it be like in May in Costa Rica, you know, for the event. And I have my ascendant is in Taurus when I put it all in.
But that's for the solar return.
Yes.
Okay. When is your birthday, Cynthia?
November 11th.
Okay, so you will have to calculate your solar return for 2020.
Okay.
Looking back, because in May in Costa Rica, that chart will be effective still until your birthday in 2021, November 2021. Is that clear or no?
Yes.
Yeah, this other person that I told you, this client of mine that I said that she's always like, oh, I have a bunch of planets in the 6th house, but I didn't get sick. This same person, she is always questioning how solar returns are really effective, and she's still living her solar return. I'm going to show her chart because I think we have time. She has Uranus, Sun together in Taurus. Okay, she has those two together, and then she said, oh, she lost her mother died too this year, and so she said, oh, I don't feel the Uranus conjunction to my Sun effective anymore. She doesn't know if she's gonna travel, if she doesn't want to travel. She's been calling me all the time to see if I can find another place, and then I said, okay, so I find these places and they don't fit. I said, go to Brazil. So, you know, and she says that Uranus Sun is not working. It is working. It works until the last minute, until the Sun goes back to that same degree, minute, and seconds. Until that happens, you're still ruled by the year before. The solar return, the solar return chart for the year before that. You know, this is like super important. March 13th of 2020, 2 days before my birthday, my chart was still being valid for the 2020 chart until the moment that the Sun hits that. It's just like boom, it creates a whole new energetic field. Okay. I don't know, you guys are like in different spots. Monica is very distant from us. I would like to know where you guys are, but let's say that we are looking at a technology here using Zoom, that whatever I say here doesn't even take a half second to reach you guys wherever you are. This is like the cosmic energy, that it's waves that are allowing this to happen. You know, we're looking at planets that are giants. You know, look at Saturn, Jupiter. I mean, the magnetic field is just amazing, you know, and they're all like mathematically dancing around the Sun. The Sun is so powerful that keeps all these giant planets or not giant planets mathematically going around the Sun endlessly, relentlessly, until the day within 4 billion years, where the sun is going to expand and just swallow all the other planets. But meanwhile, we can calculate down to the second where the planets are. This is super magnetic. This is super powerful. Okay, so the intensity goes on. I got my, don't forget that I have my Scorpio rising this year, and Pluto is in the 3rd house, you know, Saturn is in the 3rd house. So take that into consideration. Let's record. No, not record, share my screen again. Okay, so the name of the person is Jason. This is his natal chart right here, okay? So he's a Capricorn with Mercury. He's super intelligent. The guy is super intelligent. He has Neptune and Uranus in the 8th house. So very meaningful information for you guys. His sexuality is unknown. You know, he has strong tendencies. You don't really know if he's gay or if he's not, which is not a problem at all, but he's got a problem with his sexuality. I think that at some point, especially because Uranus is always involved in homosexuality. If you find like Aquarius or Uranus, you know, it always helps you detect when someone is like open to just you know, say, I don't care, you know, I'm going to have a relationship with same sex and I don't care, which is perfectly fine. But when you have Neptune and Uranus together, look at this. Neptune and Uranus together in the 8th house, you know, you might hide, Neptune might hide the tendency of this Uranus in the 8th house, you know, the desire to break free from what society tells you. Neptune can be there like saying, no, hide it. Don't come out of the closet, you know, you just stay there, you know, in Capricorn. So it's just telling them you're not going to be well accepted. Don't do it. And this becomes a huge crisis for this boy. Huge one, because he has the Gemini on the ruling his ascendant. So he's fast. You know, his mind is like super fast. As soon as you start talking to him, you feel that he has this Lilith is in the 12th house. He's got something hidden that he doesn't show anyone at all. Another element here is that he has the moon in Libra. So he's always trying to please his mother. He has a mother wound. His mother is like an alcoholic. He has Chiron in Virgo in the 4th house. So his mother is a problem. He has problems with the father and the mother. They are both alcoholics. And Uranus in the 8th house is in a square to the moon in the 4th house. So this is another mother wound, you know, Uranus, Neptune in square to the moon. And he lives with his mom. And not only he lives with his mom, but he seems to be married to his mom. You know, he took his father's place as the male of the house. Okay, so he graduated. He's a psychologist. And so you see that he has a strong 8th house is the house of a therapist. Okay, it's like it's someone who can really dig deep into hard subjects, 8th house. And he has Venus, Pluto, and Jupiter all in his 6th house. So he would be, you know, someone really fits to work with therapy because of that. You know, he has the sun in the 7th house and Mercury in the 7th house too. So he gives a lot of value to what other people say. He's like super good. He knows all about movies. He knows all about the stars, their roles. If you ask him to tell you a story about a movie, he will tell you a story about a movie. But I want to share something with you guys. His favorite subject is terror movies. Terror movies, because of this Uranus and Neptune in the 8th house. He likes that spooky aspect of the movies. You know, he really likes when you talk about, when he starts telling you about movies, you really know that, you know, it just pops up his interest in the Scorpio. He has Pluto in Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, and the North Node is in Scorpio. Okay, so the head of the dragon or the North Node in Scorpio in the 5th house, you know, crazy about movies, which he is. He knows how to say everything about movies. He will tell you how the story went, and he will capture the psychological aspects of the movies too. So he's really attracted to that. This is the boy. Now look at his transits. I told you he just tried to commit suicide last year, November last year. And so Pluto is in transit in his 12th house. And by the time it happened, he had Pluto on top of his Neptune. That's transit. That's transit. Okay. Now I'm going to stop this one and let's look at this one, which was this chart is for his solar return. Are you guys still with me? Say yes, please.
Yes, we are. We are.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the chart that no, I think he committed he tried to commit suicide was in December. That's why I got this chart. So you see this one here is for 2020 to 2021. This chart is effective from 26 December 26 December 2020 to 2021. He came out of this with this last solar return chart that started 25th December 2020. He tried to commit suicide very close to his birthday. And then he had Mars, Uranus, and Lilith in the 8th house. You don't want someone who is like fragile to have a birthday. And he was here in Miami. You know, he didn't come to ask me for a relocation. I'm just showing you a chart that happened before. That's something that happened. So he tried to commit suicide. You guys know that Mars is the warrior. So what is it that Mars does? You know, he deals with knives. Okay, so Mars in Aries is always related to sharp metal objects, knives and all other kinds of like a war type of weapons that are with that have a sharp a shape of a knife. I forgot the name of that. You know, where the people in the Middle Ages used to have before they had the guns. You know, they had those big ones. I'm gonna post that later on, and this is all happening during Aries season. So I'm gonna post it on the website, NPA website. So this guy tries to kill himself with a knife. He stabbed himself several times on his hands, on his neck, and on his stomach, and he did not die. He did not die. Okay, he did not die because Mercury, which rules his ascendant, is in trine, is making a trine here to Lilith. So he went deep on his 8th house. He was like there for some reason on this whole solar return has a signature of what he tried to do with his life. And he did it inside his house. Venus, Sun, and Mercury in the 4th house. Okay. And not only he did that in his house, but he mostly did. Who found him in the house, like laying in bed, almost dying, bleeding like crazy? His mom, Venus, a woman was there in the house that found him. And then he had the Sun there too, with Mercury. Look, Sun is giving Mercury the light in order for him not to die. What he did was like 12th house, he did that while his mother was out, but then his mother just decided to leave her job earlier that day, and she gets home and finds the guy, the little boy, the boy in, laying in bed, bleeding like crazy. I mean, this is like, I'm sorry to expose something very tragic, but Lilith is with Uranus conjunct 1 degree apart in the 8th house. Mars is in the 8th house too. Okay, so we are looking at someone who would profit if we knew that he was like almost flipping out, because he had Neptune in Pisces in the 7th house. So it wasn't to say that he was on his best, psychological perspective. He wasn't. And so all of this happened in his life when he was very fragile. But then he had the Sun, which rules the solar return in 12th house, together with the ruler of the 1st house. That's why he didn't die. That's why he didn't die, because the Sun was protecting the Mercury, protecting that kind of energy. And then he had Mars conjunct the pars of fortune. I know that evolutionary astrology hardly ever looks at pars of fortune, but I do. Okay. And then he had the pars of fortune, which is a protection point, together with Mars, which rules his 8th house. And look at these. Please pay attention to this. Pluto at 24 degrees of Capricorn was in a square, exact square to Mars at 24 degrees of Aries. Does that make sense to you guys? Does anyone want to say something about this chart? Isn't this impressive how solar return shows us a few things that are not only good things, but also the dangers of you not paying attention. You don't want people to have all these planets in the 8th house if they are fragile already. You're going to make them turn around and go elsewhere, just like buy a ticket, go somewhere else, But let's say you cannot do that. If you cannot do that, you just deal with what it is, that it's there on your solar return. Comments?
It is very interesting for me, and I made. I think it's not to the second correct, the calculation, but I will do to the second correct. The calculation,
Monica, the chart does that for you. The system.
No. I did it with my AstroGold. I adjusted it with AstroGold, and I am very close, but I have to verify it. But the difference is really very big, whether I would stay at home or, as I looked at it now, go to Madrid or to go to Barcelona. I will check this out, yeah. But most probably, and the interesting thing, I wanted for some time. This is why the first thing I checked was Madrid. I wanted for some time to go to Madrid for a few days because I'm learning Spanish from a half a year, and you know there is no other chance to really learn to make a boost if you go there, but.
Yes.
Never came up, you know, if I say Spanish, I say Peru or Chile, but this time Madrid comes up, yeah.
Okay. Were you working with this before? I mean, were you working with this before? Were you working with this perspective before?
No. I just did it while you talked. I checked the on the difference because it's coming up, you know. I have in 2 months, so and this time I want to pay attention, yeah, because
Okay.
I have clear, how to say, not expectance, but I want things to happen in a certain way, in the
Perfect.
way I do things, yeah.
Listen, this is the way to go. This is the way to go with solar returns, you know, and you can look, you know what, when I decided to go to the Grand Canyon was way before March, like in October last year. I was already thinking like, where am I gonna go? You know, I don't like my charts in Miami, so where can I go? I have
No,
one more chart to show you. We still have 20 minutes to go. Are you guys okay with another 20 minutes of this?
Oh, yes, we can take more than that.
yeah.
Okay, maybe you know, whoever wants to leave after 2 hours, I can let you leave, and you know, you leave. But we can take somebody else's chart. You know, if you guys want to do.
If you want, I can share my chart.
Okay.
As it would be for Bucharest, and then as it would be briefly for Madrid, just to do you see the difference immediately?
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Do
Okay.
that, Monica. You are the first volunteer, and if somebody else wants to show their chart too for a little,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Sandra,
let me.
I just have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about how I mean, can you talk just a little bit more about what a solar return is? Because I really haven't heard too much about it.
what do you mean? What? But Cynthia,
I
listen,
mean,
listen. This is being recorded. You were gonna get the recording later, and then because you just came in a little late, you didn't get the introduction, but you will get the introduction once you read, you hear again, you watch again the, you know, just because of the flow of what of our webinar. You know, I guarantee that you have that explanation in the beginning, but bottom line is all about calculating the way I showed you on astro.com or any other software that you use.
yeah, because
How,
I figured all that out, but it's like the other big planets are really changed in signs. You know, like my Neptune is in Pisces and it's all different.
Cynthia, the planets never change sign for the day of your birthday. They can change houses on solar return. You know, as I said, I understand your confusion because astrology is very complex. You know, sometimes you really need to sort, you know, to understand, to figure out, not sort out, to figure out what kind of technique that you are using. I must admit that solar returns are an advanced technique, you know. So because of that, be patient with yourself. You will learn eventually how to get to how to grasp what solar returns are about. You just need to First of all, listen to it again. You know, the fun part about the good part about listening to these videos again is because you end up like really sedimenting a lot of information that you really haven't perceived while I was talking, because it's too intense and too fast. Does it make sense to you, Cynthia? She's muted. Okay, yeah, like I said, listen, this is just like a sample of, this is like so deep. We can study so much about it, you know, like every 6 years you will have a solar return with Mercury retrograde. And this is another information that goes very well in a course. You know, it deserves like a whole course about this solar return. And we're trying to you know, just compress and squeeze everything in a 2 hours webinar, just to give you guys a glimpse of what can be done with the solar returns. But it's much more complex than this.
I have a question. You say solar return. Is the the sun, the most important planet to look at when on a solar return? Or
They are all very important, but it's all related, friends, to that moment when the sun goes back to that exactly degree of when you were born. Remember that I showed you guys on my chart? My chart was at 24 degrees 50 minutes and the seconds, 29 seconds, I guess, you know, of Pisces. The solar return is a technique that will calculate when the sun goes back to that exactly degree, minute, and second of the chart. It's like very mathematical and is very sensitive to the location, because two things are going to be taken in consideration. First of all, when the sun goes back to that exactly degree, minute, and second, where that happened, where that took place.
so when you interpret,
Where you were when that took place.
okay. So when you interpret the chart, by which planet do you start to interpret the chart? Do you start with the sun or Pluto or Jupiter or what?
Actually, you know, when you're looking at me, you might have a first impression, right? Like when you're looking at a chart, you have a first impression. When you're looking at me, you have a certain impression. You know, by the way I look, by the way I talk, by the way I gesticulate, you know, I move my body, you have a first impression. So the first impression is usually like, what kind of ascendant is that it's coming? I always look at the quality of the ascendant, you know. Is this a Leo ascendant? She's going to assert herself. Is this a Cancer ascendant? She's going to want to nurture someone. Is this a Gemini? So the whole year is going to be ruled by Gemini, like going here and there, being in the urban scene. You know, is it Sagittarius? The person will also want to leave a blueprint, you know, in the way they want to study something new, a new subject. They're going to get more philosophical, or they're going to go on the outdoors. It's also related to Sagittarius. Is it Capricorn? Capricorn is going to make you very like precise. You know, it's a year when you have Capricorn rising, you tend to be more down to the ground, you know, taking care of business, organizing your life, your time, you know, making plans, doing a business plan, like being more grounded. Okay, if it's Pisces, you're gonna be all, you know, hippie like, you know, very sensitive. You might engage into meditation, travel to India. Just bottom line, huh? This is just like a glimpse. Like I said, this whole subject is very complex. So when you say, and then I will look at where the sun is. Once I have figured out what that ascendant is, I'm gonna see which house the sun is. It's in the 10th house. So this year is going to be like 10th house is going to be a big subject in your life. You know, it's going to take a lot of your attention. If it's 8th house, it's like matters of, you know, transformation, crisis, losing something, having to deal with common resources. That's the 8th house. If the sun is in the 7th house, you will be very prone to work on close relationships, especially those who are most dear to you. So you're going to look at the sun in the house where they are. Like if it's in the 12th house, you're going to have like a year behind the scenes, probably, taking into consideration that you are just looking at this specific aspect. But let's say you're looking at something else, you know, because the whole configuration can only be how can I say, hold on a second. It can only be spotted once you really know what's going on in the chart. Because other than that, it's just like, okay, so I guess this is how this works. Wait, Cynthia is pinned here. Remove pin. Okay. Now Francis pin. How do I pin myself again? Here I am back. As I said, you know, I really beg you guys to be patient with this technique, you know, and then you're going to look for where the moon is, and then you're going to see where Venus is, and then you're going to have to look at the whole thing. You know, I'm sitting here on a chair. If you just look at from here to the top, you're just going to see a portion of me. I will have to stand up and show you my nails and maybe my hair so that you know me, you know, in a more amplified way. You're going to have to look at a bunch of other aspects of myself. But if you're just looking at how I look, you can say, oh, she's sitting on a chair with a blanket on, a white blanket on the back. She has earrings. You know, you're going to start telling a little bit about me, but you're not really seeing the whole thing. So when you're looking to any astrological configuration, you have to understand that that's much deeper than the first glimpse that you're having. And it's not simplistic at all. It is not simple.
I saw that you show briefly a book. Can you share which book was it? Oh,
Planets in Solar Return.
okay.
Very nice and easy.
Thank you.
Very good. It gives you, I mean, it doesn't substitute the intuition of a seasoned astrologer, because, you know, it gives you a perspective of Mars in the 8th house, you know, Venus in the 5th house, but to put it all together, that needs your brain. That needs in order for you to look at the complexity of the chart, because a chart is like a mosaic, how do you say that? You know, when you have a lot of different pieces put together, creating an image, but it's not like a puzzle. A puzzle is pre-cut. You know, if you sort out, you just try here, try there, but at the end of the day, a puzzle just sticks together with a predetermined way. A mosaic, no. It's just like a bunch of little pieces putting together an image. But you will have to use your creativity to put the pieces together, or to look of how that is composes a big picture. If you go to Barcelona, Monica, you will go to the Well Park. where Gaudi have all the all the mosaic that he did, how amazing that is, and that's how astrology works. You just put a lot of different pieces together to create a big picture. And if you look too close, if you just want to look at the ascendant, if you just want to look at where the sun is, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. A chart is not about the sun in the 12th house or the Scorpio ascendant. It's all coming together, forming and offering an image that it's complex. Let's go for the chart, Claudia's chart. Hold on a second. Let me see where I start. Okay. Okay, so this is last year. This is last year. This is her birthday is April 20th. Okay. And so this chart was valid, was activated on April 19th because it was a leap year, and the leap year always brings the birthday a day before. Do you guys get that? Mm-hmm. Always remember that. Okay, so this was like I said, Claudia, you need to go to Vienna, Austria. Okay, she was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. She lives in Miami, and the best chart for her this year of 2020, 19 April 2020, would be to go to Vienna. Why? Because amongst all the charts that I have researched for her, some interesting things were showing up. Like she was really willing to meet someone, and she really wanted to connect with someone. And then I said, okay, so Vienna will give her the Scorpio rising that I told you guys, with the intensity, and then Venus in Gemini. Venus is in Gemini anywhere that she would go, she would go anywhere in the world. Venus would be in Gemini. So I said, well, might as well just put her Venus in the 7th house. She might attract someone interesting with whom she might have a nice conversation. Okay. And I also said, oh, okay, so Venus is in Gemini in the 7th house. So she might attract someone for a closer relationship. She wants to wake up her sexuality, Scorpio rising. And then the North Node was in the 8th house. So it would help her deal with a crisis and anything that would come up this year, because she's a 0-degree Taurus, and Uranus was conjunct her sun. Anywhere she went, or anywhere that I would send her to, she would have that Uranus sun. So I said, well, why not on the 5th house? You will be more creative. You will have Mercury in the 5th house, Sun in the 5th house, Uranus in the 5th house. This is going to be fun. Okay, because Uranus in the 5th house, it makes you very creative. And then Mars in Aquarius in the 3rd house would make her a bit more. She was born with the moon in Cancer, so she's like a bit dramatic. She's always like in the melancholic side and stuff. And then I said, well, let's give her this Mars in Aquarius in the 3rd house, because it's gonna change her mindset. Listen, this is the case. This is the best case scenario that I was creating for her. Okay, she ended up not going because of COVID, and what?
I just wanted to say, I'm sure she didn't go because Vienna was totally closed.
But this was before. She always comes like four months in advance for her solar return. Once people know that you're doing solar returns, they come way in advance so that they can you know, a program, plan ahead where they're going to go. Sometimes it involves taking the whole family together, sometimes dogs, you know.
Mhm.
So she did not go. So she was very afraid because, oh, I don't like this Neptune with the moon in the 4th house. And, you know, her mother was getting older and she was having a bit of, you know, problems with the mom and all of that. And I said, listen, this is the best chart for you ever. I can show you other charts for the last year. And so she said, okay, so I'll go because I really like Venus in the 7th house. I like the Scorpio rising, but she didn't go because of COVID. So this is one chart. Screen sharing has stopped. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. So this is, at the end of the day, this was the chart Claudia ended up having, and it's still active. This is the girl that said, oh, I don't feel this chart anymore and this and that. Oh, this is not valid. She kind of like, she was born with Venus and Mars together in Aries. So she likes to tell me what to do about her astrology. But at the same time, she trusts me. So it's a, you know, Gemini rising, Taurus with Gemini rising. So she's always sending small messages all the time. Are you sure I should go there? You know, Gemini, very strong. But this, at the end of the day, this is the chart that is still valid. Bottom line is, and she said in the beginning, she said, well, what am I going to do? You know, like, I can't go to Vienna. I'm going to stay in Miami because I can't go anywhere. I'm in lockdown. Okay, so this is what happened to this lady. Her mother died, you know, all of the sudden her mother died of a heart attack because she has Uranus Sun in the 8th house and Mercury in the 8th house. Mars, which rules the 8th house, okay? I'm jumping right at the hard aspects of it. And then Mars is in a square to Uranus. It's a large square, 7 degrees, but you know what? Coming from the 8th house, I consider that a square. Okay, and she had a relationship with a guy that said he was gonna marry Moon in Pisces together with Neptune in the 7th house and Chiron in the 7th house. I wanted to avoid this because she's already, the moon is in Cancer, you know, she goes melancholic very easily. And I said, oh my God, here she goes again. She's going to have a lot of suffering with this Chiron in the 7th house and Neptune with the moon. It's not to say that she's like super spiritual, that she would attract someone, you know, on this level here of having the moon and Neptune in the 7th house. So she did not. So she attracted someone who promised her, you know, a honeymoon here, honeymoon there, and at the end of the day, it did not happen. And she was like left devastated because Neptune, which rules her 7th house during the solar return, is in a square to Venus. Okay, is in a square to Venus. It's a 7 degrees apart, but I do consider, especially when it's in between, when the square is happening between a very slow moving planets such as Neptune and Venus. The important thing here is that Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn in the 5th house, her son had a problem with, her son had twins on this year. And one of the twins was born with a problem, okay, which is like Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in the 5th house. Also shows that her son, which the 5th house is the house of kids, you know, your kids, your offsprings. She had Pluto. Remember that whole thing about the conjunction, the big conjunction between Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn in the 5th house. So she was having problems communicating with her son as well. And the whole thing is that all of a sudden she needs to deal with her mother inheritance. How do you say that? When someone leaves behind a bunch of property. Her mother left her and for her brother a bunch of property. Look, the second house is ruled by Venus and it's in the 10th house. So she's like responsible because she has the power of attorney from her mother, Mercury in the 8th house. And so now she needs to deal with this. Look at this. Virgo is ruling her first house. So Mercury is the ruler of her first houses and it's in the 8th house. And you see here, it has like a sextile to Mars and a sextile to Venus. She is inheriting a lot of property. A lot. Her mother left behind a whole bunch of property. And now she doesn't get along with her brother. Her third house, which rules the brotherhood, the brother, you know, is Scorpio, and Pluto is here with Jupiter and with Saturn in a square, involved in a square, more Saturn than any other planet, with Uranus Sun in the 8th house. So it's all there. It's all there. Now let's look. Are you guys tired? It's hard, huh? It's a lot. So this is what we have for her now this year. I told her to go to Rio. I'm gonna show exactly what I told her to do. I said, go to Rio, Brazil, the place of her birth. Why is that? Because looking at this chart, taking into consideration that again, she's gonna have to be there by April 19th, because it's happening, the solar return is happening on April 19th at 10 p.m. You see, almost on the 20th, which is the time of the day of her birth. But as I said, what is being highlighted here is when the sun goes back to 0 degree. Let's look here. This is the exact position of her sun, 0 Taurus, 12 minutes for 49 seconds of Taurus. This is what the solar return is about. We want to know what happens in the sky when the sun goes back to this exactly degree, minute, and second, because it is exactly when she was born. And then we are also going to take into consideration where this thing is happening, where, in which location on top of the earth the sun is going to go back to this same degree here. And if you are looking ahead, I told her go to Rio. Why? Because she's dealing with the inheritance that she has from she inherited from her mother. And then here we have Jupiter in the 2nd house. Deal with big money, you know, dealing with big money. She's gonna have to face her brother, which is like, look at this. Her brother has an eye problem. He's like, he can't see very well. But they also have a horrible relationship, but she's gonna have to deal with that anyways. And so I said a Capricorn rising would be good for her, because then she's really going to, you know, to put the dots on the I's and just cross the T's and just tell him as it is, and let's deal with money. And then Jupiter in the 2nd house, it's all about the properties she has to sell, because she's gonna make all of, you know, she's just going to be like so well off after she sells everything. And then in this chart in Rio, we have Uranus in the 4th house, Venus in the 4th house, Mercury in the 4th house, and the sun in the 4th house. She's gonna have to deal with things related to her properties, you know, to her real estate, you know, and that's 4th house. with Jupiter in the second house, perfect position. Capricorn will help her deal with the business at hand. But listen, no matter what I do, where I send her, she has a T-square for the year. You know, Pluto is in exact, almost in an exact opposition to the moon in Cancer in the 7th house. So I said, maybe the moon in the 7th house in Cancer is a replica of when she was born, you know. So it's just like dealing with a mother thing, dealing with whatever her mother left behind, dealing with memories of the mother. And then the moon is super aspected. You see an opposition here to Pluto, the squares that are coming from Mercury and the sun itself, you know, the trine. Look at this beautiful trine between Neptune in the 3rd house to the moon, Neptune at 22 degrees and the moon at 27 degrees of Cancer. So she might have a spot to, you know, to have a nice conversation to her brother, because the ruler of the 3rd house, which is Neptune, is in a sextile to Pluto in the 1st house, which will give her personal power to, you know, to just tell her as it is and do whatever she needs to do. And with a trine to the moon in Cancer in the 7th house, he is now her partner. He owns everything with her. Everything her mother left behind is going to be transferred to both of them, to Claudia and her brother. And look at this, ruler of the 8th house, which is death, which is the sun, because you know, Leo is ruling her 8th house. Don't forget, we're using Placidus as a house system. And then the sun is in the 4th house. Again, real estate, the mother, the death of the mother, you know, coming from the death of the mother, coming from the 8th house to the 4th. That's where the money is coming from. That's where she's, because this is the axis of money, the 2nd and the 8th house. 2nd house, my money, or the transfer of somebody else's money to my own property. And the 8th house is about shared resources, shared property, or shared money, or shared assets. You guys got that? Okay, and then the option for her to be in Miami, look at this. In Miami, I don't like this, Titi Katarina wants to come in, okay. Look at this, what if she stays in Miami? How would this chart play out? You know, 20, 21, 22. Remember that we looked at her chart, previous solar return, which is still active. And now we are looking at what's coming ahead for her. Remember that last year I told her to go to Vienna. I showed the Vienna and I explained why I told her to go to Vienna. She didn't go because of COVID. And then she went through all of that 8th house experience that I explained to you guys about. But then this year, if she stays in Miami, look at this. She has the Scorpio rising, okay? If she goes to Rio de Janeiro, she has the Capricorn rising. Are you following me? You have to have a good memory. But you know, the girl just came out of Uranus with the sun and you know, in the 8th house. Am I going to let her stay here and have another year of 8th house? This is not going to be good for her, especially with Mars in the 8th house. This is fighting. You know, the moon in the 8th house, it's going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to be dragged into 8th house again with the intensity of Scorpio on the rising. And then I have, you know, the head of the dragon, the North Node in the 7th house. And then I remember that I told you guys that I don't like the South Node in the 1st house, because it takes it throws you back to have to, you know, deal with things from your past. And she has Mars in Gemini this year. So I said, no, let's do something out different. Take this And I'm fighting with her. She says, oh, Brazil is much worse than the States right now. Send me somewhere else. So she was looking at Tulum, Mexico. I'm going to show you Tulum, Mexico. And I said, listen, you can't stay in Miami. You can't go through another year where you have 2 planets in the 8th house. It's not enough is enough. And then you know what? Venus and Uranus are probably can bring a new love affair for her, but it's not going to be someone stable, you know. Uranus, Venus is always like, hey, wake up, have that flash, you know, like go for this. And it doesn't matter if it's gonna last so much, but it's just like an exciting experience related to your sexuality or something like this. But she has some issues with her health at this moment. She's having problems with her feet. And I said, Lilith is in the 6th house, Mars is in the 8th. You know, you don't want her to go through this. And I don't want her to go through this. Saturn in the 3rd house, it's going to make her relationship with her brother very, very, very hard. And then Neptune in the 4th house, it's going to be like, wow, so what's going on in the family, you know?
Só perguntar uma coisinha. Estou aqui com o Carlos no telefone, ele estava a perguntar como é que se joga King. Qual é que era a ordem das
Hey,
cartas?
can someone mute the phone?
Com copas, não copas.
Não fazer vasas.
Não fazer vasos.
Zoom recording. So that you guys know, you know, she has, like I said, Venus, she's Taurus, Venus and Mercury are in the 10th. This is her natal chart, okay? This is her natal chart, so you guys know where I'm coming from. And then I have here, this is her birth chart, and these are the transits. Her mother died, and she's inheriting a lot of money. Look at this. Pluto is in transit in her 8th house. Saturn is in transit in her 8th house, and Jupiter is in transit in her 8th house. So this is like bringing a lot of things from the aspect of death in her life. Okay, so this is like super important. And then again, Neptune is transiting her 9th house, which is like, I wish she was studying something more of a Neptunian type of subject, but she's not. She's not. And she has the moon in her 1st house in Cancer. So every now and then she's like all confused about her feelings and stuff. But look, she always married powerful men. Okay. She has Jupiter ruling her 7th house, and then Jupiter is in her 8th house together with Saturn, men with a lot of money and working on the financial industry. 8th house is people who work with wealth, you know, a lot of money and wealth management, let's put it this way. That's what her husband used to do. And then her own money, 2nd house, she was also on this wealth management business. Venus, Mercury, and the Sun in the 10th house, like really dealing with people with a lot of money, 10th house kind of subject. And then she also has the moon, ruler of her 2nd house, in the 1st house. So she in a sextile to her Sun, in a sextile to Pluto. Her brother Pluto in the 3rd house is a very rich man already, and she has the moon in trine to Neptune. So she makes money herself, and she's inheriting a lot of money too. Last chart is like when she said, oh, I don't want to go to Brazil, I don't want to stay in Miami, let me go to somewhere else. And then I said, okay, so, you know, if you want to go somewhere else, I'm not going to show everything that I calculated for her, but I said the best case scenario would be Tulum. you know, Tulum, Mexico. You see here, Tulum, Mexico, because she still has the Scorpio in the, you know, in the right, in the ascendant, and then the moon is no longer on the 8th house. But I told her, listen, are you willing to go through Mars in the 8th house? I said, darling, I'm a psychologist. I'm here to support you. But listen, if you go to Tulum, I'm going to make money giving you the support, because it's going to be a hard year. You know, especially with Pluto and Saturn in the 3rd house, which is pretty much what it's happening to me. I don't want to brag about myself, but I don't think she's that conscious about how to surf a way of having Pluto and Saturn in her 3rd house, especially having Chiron in her 5th house. You know, it's gonna hurt somehow. She's going to, you know, the 5th house is a house of playfulness. She might not be so playful with Chiron in the 5th house, and all these planets here, including Lilith and Uranus and Venus and Mercury, all in the 6th house. Remember that she was telling me way back then, you know, like 2 hours ago, I was telling you that this was the girl that told me, oh, last time I had all these planets in the 6th house, nothing happened to me, but my husband had a Cancer. That was what she was trying to rebuke. Is that the way to say it? She was like telling me, oh, I can take the 6th house planets, because she didn't want to go to Rio. She's afraid of the pandemic down there. And then I said, listen, haven't you taken the first vaccine yet? I'm not going to take the vaccine, but for other reasons. And she said, yes, I've taken one. And I said, just make sure that you take the 2nd shot before you go to Brazil. And you say, oh, but I'm not going to be able to go to restaurants or do anything. And I said, but that's not important, my love. The important thing is that you get the right solar return so that you don't go through a hard time again. And that's the end of the story. That's how sometimes I'm like, I know this client very well. We've been working together for quite a while. But I told her, and then remember that she told me, oh, but my solar return is no longer active, which is because remember that she had Uranus Sun in her 8th house. That's the doubt. That's just like last minute. She doesn't even know if she's going to go to Brazil or not. It's still valid, and she needs to go there because her brother lives there. She needs to sit down, you know, and sort things out with him and say, oh, we're going to sell this, we're going to sell that. And with that other charts that I showed you, you're going to see on the video later on, she has a bunch of planets in the 4th house, which allows her to deal with real estate and the whole property thing that she's inheriting from her mother. And then when you have someone with an aspect a year before in a solar return, when someone died, the next year in a solar return, you have Mars in the 8th house, they're going to fight for whatever the deceased person left behind. And especially in Gemini. Gemini is the chart of the twins. So here I end my presentation.